60 to 65%, there's going to be questions that you have to analyze them, similar to the homework problems. And say 30%, so less than 40%, about 30%, it's going to be questions that you have to, write about them. I'll give you examples, right? So as we move, as I talk about each chapter, I'll give you examples. So for each chapter, I'll tell you whether you should expect questions where you have to draw graphs or solve some things, or there are questions that you have to just write about them. So one of the things that you need to do, of course, start studying earlier. You have a lot of time for this class. So the exam is on the 12th, right? I'll be here, if you want to see me, I'll be here Monday. So my office hours next week would be different compared to my regular office hours. I'll be here Monday. Send me an email, but I'm going to be here between 1 to 3:30. So I'll be here between 1 to 3:30 this Monday. Also, I'm going to be here Thursday next week. So I'm going to be here Thursday. Sometime in the morning, I'll send you an email. I'll give you the exact time that I'm going to be here. So that's Thursday. So this is my Monday, 4th of December, Thursday, 7th of December. So these are the 2 days that I'm going to be here, if you want to see me.
What are the exams? On those days are reviewed with the TA, so I'll go with
The exams are with Shi-Chen. Again, I have the questions. If you want to go over the questions, I have the questions. But your specific exam, if there's an issue in terms of grading, your specific exam, always it's better to see Shi-Chen first. If you're planning to do so, please do it much earlier. If you can meet her, make an appointment with her today, because if there's an issue, you want to come and see me afterwards. So if you have there's an issue with grading, first see her. She's the one who has graded the exam. So, she knows what's going on. And then if it wasn't resolved, then, you can come and see me. When you see me, I'll have your exam. So, but it should be, arranged with you. But if it's about going over the questions, I do have the questions. I've mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again. Please check your grades. Make sure everything is good in terms of your grade. So Thursday, it's going to be sometime in the morning, but I'll let you guys exactly know what the time exactly the time that I'm available. After that, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to have any more office hours after the 7th. So and then I'll be here on the day of the exam, which is the 12th, Tuesday, the Tuesday after that. In the meantime, if you have questions, you can always send me an email. I'll try to answer it with email. If it wasn't working, we can talk over the phone or Skype. If you need to, if you need to be more like in person, I can draw things, I can show it to you, so on and so forth. So after the 7th, but it's better to start studying earlier, because then you have a chance to meet me in person during my office hours. It should be, sometimes it's more helpful, right? So now let me start from the beginning of the semester and go over each chapter and see what we have done. Oh, by the way, the exam, as you know, it's accumulative. So, one of the things that I don't mention at the beginning of the semester about the reason why I want my exam to be accumulative, I don't mention it at the beginning of the semester because it creates moral hazard problem. I'll tell you why. So if you have not done well on one of your midterms, one of them, not both of them, but one of the midterms, since exam is accumulative, if you do well on the final exam, I understand that you've learned the class, the material, and that's the goal, right? But so I have, my hands are relatively open to decrease the weight on the midterm that you have not done so well. So I'm going to help you if you do well on the final exam with decreasing the weight on the midterm that you haven't done well, okay? So that's another incentive for you guys to study a little bit more for your final exam if you haven't done so well on one of the midterms. But it is also depends. So it's not a rule. It's not on the syllabus. Again, I know you. I know the attendance, the participation in class. So that affects how much I'm willing to help you. Also, I look at the homeworks. If you've submitted all of your homeworks or not. So I consider everything, and then if I see, so that's another incentive. So study as much as you can for the final exam. The reason why I do not mention this at the beginning of the semester is that it will decrease your motivation to study for the midterms exams, and you may want to, So I don't. So that's one reason. The other reason is that now you're gonna, so you're gonna study everything that we've discussed from the beginning of the semester one more time. So you're gonna learn a lot more. Repeating this material is really helpful. Otherwise, you wouldn't remember anything. You're gonna have a better sort of intuitive understanding if you read it, if you do everything or study it more than once. So let's start from the first chapter. So the first, I'm gonna start talking here. I'll start by chapter. So the Ricardian model, right? So I'm gonna start with our model. So the Ricardian model, and because we have done it a long time ago, I'll spend a little bit more time on the Ricardian model, on the specific factors model, a little bit less time after that, and then I'll see how I go. So I'm gonna do an example on the Ricardian model. So there are two countries. So this is one of the chapters that, first of all, you will see one question on the Ricardian. So I'm just kind of telling you what the questions might look like. There's gonna be one question on the Ricardian model, right? Or maybe 1.5, I'll tell you. And it's going to be something like this, so very similar to what I'm doing right now. So there are two countries, home and foreign. They're producing cheese and wine, and I mean, of course, it could be different countries and different goods. But you're going to receive information about unit labor requirements. So unit labor requirement for cheese in home, unit labor requirement for wine in home, and then unit labor requirement for again. Cheese, foreign, unit labor requirement for wine, foreign. Let me tell you what the numbers are. 5 and 2, 6 and 6. So here I have 5 and 2. Here I'm gonna have 6 and 6. And then I'll ask you, which country has absolute advantage in which one of these goods? So which country has absolute advantage in cheese? Home has absolute advantage in cheese, and home has absolute advantage in wine, because both cases it takes just 2 hours to produce a gallon of wine and a pound of cheese, but it's going to get 6 hours. So it's so absolute advantage. And then I'll tell you what about comparative advantage? Which country has comparative advantage in wine, and which country has comparative advantage in cheese? And then you have to look at opportunity costs, right? So opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine, it's equal to 5 divided by 2. It's going to be 2.5 in home, and in foreign, ALC star divided by ALW star, it's going to be 6 divided by 6, which is equal to 1, right? So opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine in home, it's bigger than opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine in foreign, and therefore home has comparative advantage in wine production, and foreign would have comparative advantage in cheese production. And then I'll give you some more information. I'll tell you total amount of labor available in home is equal to, let me use the numbers that I have here. It's equal to 100. And L star is equal to 200, let's say. Then I'll ask you, so what is the production possibility frontier? Look like what is the sort of equation for production possibility frontier? So graphic representation, but also mathematical representation, something like this. So for one of these countries, say I'm interested in home. So what if I want to know what is production possibility frontier in home? So unit labor requirement, right? So 5 times number of units of cheese that is produced plus 2 times numbers of units of wine that is produced. It should be equal to 100. Right. This is total labor dedicated to cheese, total labor dedicated to wine, and it can't be more than 100 because total amount of labor in home is equal to 100. So you're going to draw this. So you're going to put QW here maybe, QC there, and then you would draw it. So it looks something like this. production possibility. Then I'll tell you, let's say the countries are trading, so this or something like that. So what if countries are trading? Slow me down if you like. Any questions if this is not good? Otherwise, I'm going to move a little bit faster than usual. You're familiar with some of these things, and I have a lot to say. So, relative supply curve. So, I ask you to relative supply curve for the world. So, what is relative supply curve for the world? And the relative supply curve is relative cheese production in the world divided by, cheese production in the world divided by wine production in the world. So, relative cheese to wine production in the world. You're going to have that on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis, you're going to have price of cheese to price of wine. And the numbers that I'm interested in, the key numbers are opportunity costs, right? Which was 2.5 here and 1, right? So I just erased 2.5 and 1. And what do I say? I say if relative price of cheese in terms of wine, if it's less than 1, what's going to happen?
None gets produced.
Say it again.
None gets produced.
No cheese is going to be produced. All the labor would go to wine production, both in home and foreign, because it means that price, relative price, is less than opportunity cost of cheese to wine in foreign, but it's also less than 2.5, right? So it's also less than opportunity cost of cheese to wine in home. So home and foreign, they're going to both produce only wine, no cheese. So you're going to have a part of the supply curve that looks like this. And then I may, well, I'm not going to mention, but I may ask you why, right? So you should have an understanding why this is the case, right? And it has to do with wage in cheese industry and wage in wine industry, and the fact that in perfectly competitive markets, wage in cheese industry is equal to value of marginal product of labor, right? Value of 1 hour of work, which in home, for example, 1 hour of work, you're going to produce 1/5 of pound of cheese. Look at the unit labor requirement, right? Times price of cheese. And value of production in wine industry, 1 hour of work, it's 1/2 times price of wine. Right? And what else do I know? I know that wages, these workers, they can move from one industry to another. So if wage in cheese industry is less than wage in wine industry, no cheese is going to be produced, only wine. And substitute, you're going to see the relationship between opportunity cost and relative price. So start from here, substitute, and you're going to see it has the relationship between opportunity cost and relative price. So do this. So that's that. So any questions? You're good? But then I was talking about relative supply curve. So what if PC over PW is equal to 1? Then opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine is equal to relative price of cheese to wine just in foreign. So foreigners, they're going to start producing cheese. They're okay with producing cheese. Wage in cheese industry is going to be equal to wage in wine industry. And so you're going to have a section that is horizontal. And when you're drawing this, you have to identify this point, guys. There's a number here, right? The king point here. When it goes up, remember, it will go up eventually, right? But when it goes up, you want to identify this point. So what is this point? This point is when foreign is producing only cheese. So this is QC star and no wine. And home is producing only wine. So foreign is allocating all of its resources to cheese. I mean, foreign is indifferent between cheese and wine, can produce no cheese, in which case we're going to be here, or a lot of cheese, in which case we're going to be there, right? Or somewhere in between. So if foreign allocate all of its resources to cheese, how much cheese is going to be produced? 200 divided by 6. And if home allocate all of its resources to wine, how much wine is going to be produced? 50. So there's a number, you have to identify that number. In fact, this is equal to 2/3. Then you have an area where relative price is between 2.5 and 1 here, which means that relative price is more than opportunity cost of cheese to wine in foreign, but less than opportunity cost of cheese to wine in home. So foreigners, they're going to produce only cheese, and home they're going to produce only wine. So still you're going to be here, exactly. So cheese to wine production stays the same along this range of relative price. And then after that, if relative price is equal to 2.5, home also would like to produce some cheese, or at least home is indifferent between producing cheese and wine. And so it's going to continue. And then if relative price is above 2.5, you're going to see only cheese production, no wine production, which means that relative cheese to wine goes to infinity. So this is one question with all of the details. So you good. And then I may say, well, how do I know? What else do I need to know? If I want to know what exactly, how much cheese, how much wine in each of these countries is going to be produced, I need to also have a demand curve. So here's my demand curve. Say demand is given as, relative demand is given as QC plus QC star divided by QW plus QW star, relative demand. Say it's given as 6 minus 5 PC divided by PW. And so what is so what's the story here? What's going to be actual relative price in equilibrium, so on and so forth. So you want to look at these areas or make a guess. Usually, guys, you can cheat. Usually, guys, the intersection is on this part, right? So usually, relative price would be somewhere between relative price, autarky price in home and autarky price in foreign. So usually, so the first thing you want to check if the intersection is at the vertical part of the supply curve. What do I do to see that? Instead of QC divided by that, that's what I know exactly. What is this? 2/3, right? So I'm going to put 2/3 here. I'm going to isolate PC, 5 PC divided by PW. Then PC divided by PW would be equal to 16 divided by 15. 16 divided by 50. If you isolate. But this was a guess. You wouldn't know. How do I know? Am I at the intersection? Is it on the vertical axis or not? That's the question. How do I know that? I wanted to know price if relative quantity is equal to 2/3, right? So, and I found out it is 16 divided by 50. But is that the right number? How do I know that? You see, here is my demand curve. It could look like this, it could look like this, or that. What I did, I put this Q's, relative quantity in my demand curve. If the number that comes, if it's somewhere between 1 and 2.5, I'm good. If it's a number below that, it means that the intersection, in fact, should be here. If it's a number above that, it means that the intersection should be there. So I have to do it again. So if it is between 1 and 2.5, I'm good. Right? These are the numbers. We're fine. But if it's not, then you have to look at if it's equal to 1, right? If relative price is equal to 1, what is the quantity? And if relative price is equal to 2.5, what is the quantity? And make sure that the intersection is either there or there, and figure out which one it is. Is that good? Makes sense? should be given. So how would you know? I mean, right, so the demand curve should be given. So this is something that this equation, something like this, should be given. Now another part, so now what would be relative wage in home and foreign? In this case, and we figure out, is this between 1 and 2.5? Is this between 1 and 2.5? It is. It's 1 point a little bit, right? So it is actually between 1 and 2.5. So we're fine. Now, what is relative wage? Another part of the question might ask, what is the, so W divided by W star. How do I know what is W divided by W star in this case?
Is it one because they were just moved?
No, it's actually, it's not 1. Why are you saying it's 1? You're saying wage in home and foreign should be equal?
No, I guess they wouldn't be able to move very easily between countries.
Yeah, of course. No, workers, they cannot move at all. They're completely immobile between countries. If you had workers' mobility, complete workers' mobility, then wages are going to be equal, right? But it is not. So wages are not going to be equal, in fact. I mean, not necessarily, unless under certain circumstances, unless just randomly. Sometimes it might happen that you have the same work, the same wage if they have exactly the same productivity, so on. But they don't. They don't have the same productivity. So so what do you guess? Do you think this relative wage would be greater than, less than, or equal to 1? Relative wage. Wage has to do with productivity. The more productive you are, your wage would be higher. Which country is more productive? Home. So relative wage, what is your guess? It should be greater than 1. Now we'll see what exactly. So greater than 1. So I'm guessing it's greater than 1. How do I know what it is exactly? What is wage in home? Do I have enough information? So these are the questions, right? Can I say, what is wage in home? What? Tell me, what's the production in home? Price is somewhere here. It means that home is producing wine only. Foreign is producing cheese only. Now what is wage in home? So if I'm talking about wage in home, I have to be worried about wage in which industry? Wine industry. Because in home, only wine will be produced. So what is wage in wine industry? No? Perfectly competitive markets. What is wage? Value of production, right? It's equal to value of marginal product of labor. So each hour of work, workers in home, they're going to produce wine. Each hour of work, how many gallons of wine are they going to produce? 2 or 1/2. Unit labor requirement was 2, meaning that you need 2 hours to produce 1 gallon. Therefore, in 1 hour they can produce half a gallon. So 1/2 times price of wine. Right. Workers in home. Each hour they work, how many pounds of cheese can they produce? 1/6, right? 1/6 times price of cheese. So this is relative wage. Is that good? So it means that it is equal to, if I 3 times PW divided by PC. But I sort of know what is PC divided by PW, so I know what is PW divided by PC. So it's equal to 3 times 15 divided by 16. So it's equal to 45 divided by 16. So you guessed it right. It is, in fact, about 1. Obviously, because in home, workers are more productive, so it should be about 1. But how much exactly, of course, depends on the relative price, so it depends on the demand. Any question? you will see something like this. Or I may give you, so instead of giving you a demand curve and having you actually solve the intersection, solve for the intersection, I may tell you in equilibrium with trade, relative price would be 1.5, right? So I may give you the outcome of that equilibrium, or I may give you the demand curve. So this is one question that you will see on chapter 1. Another type of question that you might see on chapter 1 is when you have multiple goods. So say I have Chile and Uruguay, I believe it was. So and then you have. So this is another sort of example. Maybe I've used it. But you have a good A, or let's do capital A, B, C, and D, and two. Well, let's say foreign. Oh, home. Let's start with home. So home. And foreign, and unit labor requirement. So now what do I have? I have unit labor requirement 5, 15, 30, and 2. And here I'm going to have 2.5, 30, 30, and 3. So I have unit labor requirement for different goods. And again, the key here is cost of production. So when you have multiple goods, remember I looked at the labor market as opposed to goods market to see what patterns. So we were talking about patterns of trade. To figure out something about patterns of trade, I looked at the labor market.